to celebrate the life of Robert Baum, December the 6th, 2014, Anno Domini, the year of our Lord.
Just arrived, so that's why we're a little late. And we cannot push the walls out any more than what we have. It's a beautiful meeting house that we're gathered in. So first of all, we want to thank the Old Chapel Meeting House and the Quaker Society here in the community for hosting us in this place. And on behalf of Joyce, I want to express that she is very grateful for your presence this afternoon, for all of the love and comfort and messages and support you've given her since Bob died, for all of the ways that you will continue to help out. Joyce certainly thanks you for that. And we ran out of the program, so I'm going to hold on to mine, so then I will just let you know what we're doing next.
Can you make it louder for the people in the room?
I can speak louder. Can they hear? Can you wave if you can't hear me? Okay, so again, we welcome you all here from points east and west and north and south, family, friends, probably some strangers slipped in here too. But we're again, on behalf of Joyce and her family, I welcome you. I'm Pastor Bob Lesh, a friend of Bob and Joyce's. I'm a pastor of a church in Sand Lake, New York. And again, I want to thank the Quaker Society here for allowing us to be here. And I also do not know some of the participants in the service by name, particularly the musicians, so I want to thank all of the musicians who will be playing for the service this afternoon. And I will announce as we go through the program, just so each one knows what we're doing next, and because most, half of you, I don't think they even have the insert. But again, I want to emphasize, Joyce has been overwhelmed by your support and your love and your care. And as every one of you knows who's lost a loved one, especially a significant other such as Bob, continue to share that love and comfort and support with her and her family in all the days to come. Because the mourning continues on, and the missing of a loved one goes on really forever. We've been listening to our musical prelude, so we want to thank, again, the musicians who've been sharing in that as we gather together. And I now ask that we join in a prayer that I will offer for us. May the grace of God, the love of God, and the communion of the Holy Spirit be with you all. I share the Mourner's Kaddish English translation. Glorified and sanctified be God's great name throughout the world, which he has created according to his will. May he establish his kingdom in your lifetime and during your days, and within the life of the entire house of Israel, speedily and soon, and say, Amen. May his great name be blessed forever and to all eternity. Blessed and praised, glorified and exalted, extolled and honored, adored and lauded be the name of the Holy One. Blessed be he. Beyond all the blessings and hymns, praises and consolations that are ever spoken in the world, and say Amen. May there be abundant peace from heaven and life for us and for all Israel, and say Amen. He who creates peace in his celestial heights, may he create peace for us and for all Israel, and say Amen.
Amen.
And then the El Malai Rachamim, God full of mercy, who dwells on high, grant perfect rest on the wings of your divine presence, in the lofty heights of the holy and sure and pure, who shine as the brightness of the heavens, to the soul of Robert Baum, who has gone to his eternal rest, as all his family and friends pray for the elevation of his soul. May his resting place be in the Garden of Eden. Therefore the Master of mercy will care for him under the protection of his wings for all time, and bind his soul in the bond of everlasting life. God is his inheritance, and he will rest in peace. And let us say, Amen. We gather in the presence of God's presence, the Spirit of God with each one of us, and God's healing love and comfort. We are here to pour out our grief, to release our anger, to face our emptiness and loneliness, and know that God cares. We gather here as the people of God of many different traditions, conscious of others who have died, and of the frailty of our own existence on earth. We come to comfort and to support one another in our common loss. We gather to hear the word of God and the word of family and friends that can drive away all despair and move us to offer to God our praise. We gather to commend to God with thanksgiving the life and soul of Robert Baum. For whether we live or whether we die, we know that each one of us belongs to God. Our God is gracious and righteous. Our God is full of compassion. We will walk in the presence of God in the land of the living. We will fulfill our vows to God in the presence of all God's people. Later in the service, I'll be asking those of you who wish to share a few words. A couple members of the family will be sharing their reflections and memories about Bob's life. And then you'll have an opportunity to share briefly, some memories or experiences that you wish to share with others. And I say that knowing that one of the greatest fears of all people is speaking before or even in the midst of a congregation or a gathering of people. So there will be some of you, perhaps many of you, who may wish to say something but don't feel comfortable. Feel comfortable being silent and not sharing, because you'll have the opportunities in all the days ahead to share those memories and experiences with Joyce and her family. So that all of the sharing is not going to be done this afternoon, but I'm giving you a heads up to think of something you'd like to share that would be appropriate in this setting. And again, I sound like a lawyer. Be brief. Use brief, you know. Our first musical selection is Ave Maria, written by Franz Schubert.
Can you move that, honey? Thank you.
Hebrew Scriptures are several passages that we wish to share with you that they may give you comfort and strength. They also, as the Hebrew Scripture is the Old Testament for Christians, it is also meaningful to all. And most of these are familiar passages. But our intent is that you be comforted by these words. First from Ecclesiastes, chapter 3, verses 1 through 8. For everything there is a season, and a time for every matter under heaven. A time to be born, and a time to die. A time to plant, and a time to pluck up what is planted. A time to kill, and a time to heal. A time to break down, and a time to build up. A time to weep, and a time to laugh. A time to mourn, and a time to dance. A time to throw away stones, and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace, and a time to embrace, to refrain from embracing. A time to seek, and a time to lose. A time to keep, and a time to throw away. A time to tear, and a time to sow. A time to love, and a time to hate. A time for war, and a time for peace. From the psalmist, Psalm 103, reading from near the end of that psalm. As for mortals, their days are like grass. They flourish like a flower of the field. For the wind that passes over it, and it is gone, and its place knows it no more. And the steadfast love of the Lord is from everlasting to everlasting on those who love life. And his righteousness to children's children, to those who keep his covenant and remember to do his commandments. One of the traditions, part of Bob and Joyce's heritage, was that of Christian Science. And the Psalm 23rd had been adapted by Mary Baker Eddy, the founder of Christian Science, and I share that particular adaptation of the 23rd Psalm by her. Divine love is my shepherd, I shall not want. Love maketh me to lie down in green pastures. Love leadeth me beside the still waters. Love restoreth my spiritual sense. Love leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yes, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for love is with me. Love's rod and love's staff, they comfort me. Love prepareth a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Love anointeth my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house, the consciousness of love forever. One of Bob's favorite songs was this song, O Gentle Presence, which was also written by Mary Baker Eddy.
beneath the shadow of his mighty wing. In that sweet secret of the narrow way, seeking and finding with the angels sing, I am with you always, watch and pray. No snare, no fowler, pestilence or pain, no night drops down upon a troubled breast. When heaven's after smile earth's teardrops gain, and mother finds her home and heavenly rest.
May the gentle presence of God be with each of you. The song was particularly meaningful to Bob because it was also sung at the memorial service for his mother, and thus that comforted him. Now the comfort is passed on to you. Another familiar mystic writer is Khalil Gibran, and our next reading is from The Prophet by him. Khalil Gibran was a Lebanese mystic who, in The Prophet, is speaking as not himself, but as the prophet. And this particular section is called The Beauty of Death. And it describes not Khalil Gibran's own death, but is describing the prophet's death. Let me sleep, for my soul is intoxicated with love. And let me rest, for my spirit has had its bounty of days and nights. Light the candles and burn the incense around my bed, and scatter leaves of jasmine and roses over my body. Embalm my hair with frankincense and sprinkle my feet with perfume, and read what the hand of death has written on my forehead. Let me rest in the arms of slumber, for my open eyes are tired. Let the silver-stringed lyre quiver and soothe my spirit. Weave from the harp and lute a veil around my withering heart. Sing of the past as you behold the dawn of hope in my eyes, for its magic meaning is a soft bed upon which my heart rests. Dry your tears, my friend, and raise your heads as the flowers raise their crowns to greet the dawn. Look at the bride of death standing like a column of light between my bed and the infinite. Hold your breath and listen with me to the beckoning rustle of her white wings. Come close and bid me farewell. Touch my eyes with smiling lips. Let the children grasp my hands with soft and rosy fingers. Let the aged place their veined hands upon my head and bless me. Let the virgins come close and see the shadow of God in my eyes, and hear the echo of his will racing with my breath. The ascending. I have passed the mountain peak, and my soul is soaring in the firmament of complete and unbound freedom. And far, far away, my companions and the clouds are hiding the hills from my eyes. The valleys are becoming flooded with an ocean of silence, and the hands of oblivion are engulfing the roads and the houses. The prairies and fields are disappearing behind a white specter that looks like the spring cloud, yellow as the candlelight and red as the twilight. The songs of the waves and the hymns of the streams are scattered, and the voices of the throngs reduced to silence. And I can hear naught but the music of eternity, in exact harmony with the Spirit's desires. I am cloaked in full whiteness. I am in comfort. I am in peace. The remains. Unwrap me from this white linen shroud and clothe me with leaves of jasmine and lilies. Take my body from the ivory casket and let it rest upon pillows of orange blossoms. Lament me not, but sing songs of youth and joy. Shed not tears upon me, but sing of harvest and the winepress. Utter no sigh of agony, but draw upon my face with your finger the symbol of love and joy. Disturb not the air's tranquility with chanting and requiems, but let your heart sing with me the song of eternal life. Mourn me not with apparel of black, but dress in color and rejoice with me. Talk not of my departure with sighs in your hearts. Close your eyes, and you will see me with you forevermore. Place me upon clusters of leaves and carry me upon your friendly shoulders, and walk slowly to the deserted forest. Take me not to the crowded burying ground, lest my slumber be disrupted by the rattling of bones and skulls. Carry me to the cypress woods, and dig my grave where violets and poppies grow not in the other shadow. Let my grave be deep so that the flood will not carry my bones to the open valley. Let my grave be wide so that the twilight shadows will come and sit by me. Take from me all earthly raiment and place me deep in my mother earth, and place me with care upon my mother's breast. Cover me with soft earth, and let each handful be mixed with seeds of jasmine, lilies, and myrtle. And when they grow above me and thrive on my body's element, they will breathe the fragrance of my heart into space, and reveal even to the sun the secret of my peace, and sail with the breeze and comfort the wayfarer. Leave me then, my friends, leave me and depart on mute feet, as the silent walks in the deserted valley. Leave me to God and disperse yourselves slowly as the almond and the apple blossoms disperse under the vibration of Nisan's breeze. Go back to the joy of your dwellings, and you will find there that which death cannot remove from you and me. Leave this place, for what you see here is far away in meaning from the earthly world. Leave me. Now again, some beautiful music, the Ashokan Farewell.
May I just say, before we play this, that a few years ago, Bob was in the Ava Park Community Orchestra with us, and we did the Ashokan Farewell. And he loved it. He loved it so much, and that is why I chose to play it for you today.
not for you yet, but for Allison and Mark, representing the family, sharing some of their memories about Bob. But we're going to start first.
Hi, my name is Allison Saxelby, and I'm married into Bob and Joyce's family. And Joyce asked me to share just a brief biological sketch of his life. Bob was born in New Rochelle, New York. His father was Nathaniel Baum, a well-known conductor, composer, and piano teacher. His mother, Adele, was a dietitian whose family came from Ontario, Canada. Bob had one sister, Natalie, whom he adored. During their growing up years, Bob and Natalie went to a summer camp in Ontario, which was owned by his mother's sister. Bob's father was the music director, and his mother was the camp dietitian. One time, Bob's cousin, the camp director, put a trumpet in his hands and asked him to play taps and reveille. Well, the rest is history. This seemingly insignificant event marked the beginning of Bob's trumpet career. During his high school years, Bob marched with the New Rochelle Town Band in parades led by his father. He also belonged to a brass quartet during this time. This quartet would play carols in front of wealthy homes at Christmas time and would earn quite a lot of money. Bob attended Michigan State University, where he studied hotel administration. His parents wanted him to run a B&B, but this was their dream and not his, and it never happened. After he graduated, Bob returned to New York and floundered for a while, searching and somewhat confused. He met Joyce at the Christian Science Church, and they secretly dated for 4 years. Joyce's father said he must have a job. He drove a truck for the drugstore, but he wasn't living up to his potential. One day, the soda fountain worker at the drugstore was sick, and Bob filled in for him. A woman at the counter said, "What's a nice young man like you doing driving a truck?" "The kitchen business down the street needs a truck driver." So Bob went to apply for the job. The owner said to him, "You're too smart to drive a truck. I want you to be a kitchen design salesperson." Bob said, "I don't know anything about the kitchen business." The owner said, "I'll teach you. You will be one step ahead of the customer." Well, he learned the business and he loved it. He held jobs with many different kitchen companies, but he finally landed a position with Millbrook Kitchens, upstate, where he stayed for 30 years. Bob was a pioneer in the kitchen industry. He joined the business when it was just beginning to take hold. He was one of the first members of the NKBA, which means the National Kitchen and Bath Association, and he was one of the first to receive the CKD award, the Certified Kitchen Designer. At the same time that Bob was advancing in his career, he was also growing musically. He practiced his trumpet daily, playing with the Averill Park Community Orchestra, the Tri-City Banjo Band, and the Nassau East Greenbush Community Band. He also was active in community affairs. Bob was a warm, caring, loving human being. Joyce loved to call him DID, Damsel in Distress, because of his great love for his mother and his sister. He was kind toward people in need. When Joyce started a mentoring program, she asked Bob to help. He mentored a boy called Tim, who was about 15 at the time. Over the years, he stayed in touch with Tim, and Tim is now in his mid-30s. Bob was a great companion for Joyce and a soulmate. They could talk about anything and everything. They both loved sports, music, and theater. She said he had a lovely speaking voice and a great sense of humor. Even when he was in the hospital, he continued to joke around and make the best of things. Joyce also loved the way Bob was so accepting and made everyone feel at ease. Now, just a personal note for me. I started dating Johnny, Joyce's nephew, about 37 years ago, hard to believe, which was the first time I had the pleasure of meeting Bob Baum. Uncle Bob was so warm, and he welcomed me into his family, and above all, he was good-natured. He was just such a giving and encouraging person, and a great listener. He knew how to keep a party lively with his jokes and funny expressions. I got a kick out of a few of them. He said, "I'm busier than a one-armed paper hanger." That just got to me for some reason. That's what he would say. Or he would say, "I've had 58 years of wedded blisters." So I'm so glad that he and I could be part of the same family for so many years, and I already miss him.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mark Steinberg. I am Bob's nephew. Basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to echo some of the things that Allison so eloquently put about Bob. Everybody here, I'm sure, knows, like Allison said, that Bob was such a good-natured guy. Thinking about what I was going to say today, I'm in the music business, and I've eulogized a number of rather famous musicians. And this time I got to eulogize the famous musician in my family. Bob Baum, as a musician, had more soul than anybody I ever met. And to me, that is the greatest quality that you can have as a musician. Anybody can play and learn how to play, but if you don't have it in your heart, you're not going to be as good as you ultimately can be. And that, as Allison said, you know, I thought about Bob recently in terms of what I was going to say, and I really can't remember him being very angry about anything for more than a fleeting moment. Bob was just the most gentle guy that you could ever meet, you know, and I luckily had the honor of him being my uncle. And since Joyce and Bob didn't have any children of their own, my life was always filled with Joyce and Bob taking my brother and myself, and we would do all the things that we weren't allowed to do with my mother. Which ultimately meant that it was something to really look forward to. We did a lot, you know, just briefly. I mean, I was thinking about it. I mean, we did all kinds of things. We would come up to the country. Joyce and Bob had recently moved here, but even before they moved here permanently, they lived in Larchmont. And I was thinking the other day, after Bob passed away, I went over and I talked to Joyce, and I told her about my memories of Bob. One in particular, Bob caught, I live on Quitchy Lake now in Canaan, not too far from here, and Bob and Joyce were there all often because it was my father and my mother's summer cottage. And Bob would come and fish occasionally on his own, and one year he caught the biggest catfish I've ever seen in my life. I mean, and I'm a little kid, and he literally caught a catfish in the lake where they're normally about 10 to 15 inches long. He caught one that was almost 3 feet long, if I recall. I mean, it was a monster. And I went to him and I'm like, "Bob, Uncle Bob, you gotta take me fishing. I want to catch a catfish like you did, you know?" And the funny thing about it was that he caught it on what's called a daredevil lure, which is a little red spoon type thing. And Bob was not the most traditional fisherman. He caught it on a daredevil that he had attached a piece of marshmallow on. I swear to God, you know, and my father was like scoffing at him, but Bob is the one that caught the huge catfish, you know. So Bob took me out catfishing and actually caught one who was nowhere near as big as the one Bob had caught, but but that was just a dear memory. And thinking about it, just a couple of days ago, I remembered when I was growing up in Larchmont. I was in the first grade. It was 1969. And I was listening to the Met games in the World Series on a little transistor radio with a headphone in first grade. And the game ended and school actually the game was going on and school had just ended. So I ran from Chatsworth Avenue School all the way to Joyce and Bob's apartment, which was over a mile away, so that I could watch the end of the game with my Uncle Bob. And we had such a great time. That's probably one of my fondest memories of Bob. And then when I moved up here, we did a lot of things together. We wanted to get a website together for his kitchen business. I worked with him on that. We would just do all kinds of great things, but like I said, Bob was one of the most soulful people I ever met. You know, he would call me up, and I had spine surgery about 3.5 years ago, and the person I heard the most from was my Uncle Bob, and that just, it meant a lot. I mean, he was, you know, he cared so much about people. And even when they would piss him off, it was so brief. I mean, I never heard him carry any ill thoughts about anybody, and I never met anybody that cared for their parents the way Bob did about Matt and Adele too. He was a genuine soul. When Bob had his birthday a few weeks before he ultimately passed, unfortunately, Bob used to write songs for people's birthdays, and so I thought, I'm like, you know, how many opportunities am I going to get? I knew Bob wasn't in the best of health, so I made sure I was off of work, which is sometimes difficult, and I went and we had a little birthday celebration for Bob, and I wrote him a song. I'm not going to do it right now, but basically what I did was I took the Camptown Races song and I wrote a song about my Uncle Bob. And I'm so glad I did, because, you know, when you're in this life, I've learned one thing, is that you need to tell people that you love them all the time, because you never know when you're going to have another opportunity. So I'm really glad that I did that day and had the chance to tell Bob I loved him. So thank you.
My name is John Saxelby. I'm another one of your nephews. My relationship with Uncle Bob goes back to the beginning of time. I'm going to have some rambling thoughts because, well, when you think about these things, you don't know what you're going to say. But anyway, I love my Uncle Bob. He was a special person in a way which I know that many of you know that he was special. We've lost a great friend. But we have his memories, and I think that's what we'll carry forward. We'll remember Bob Baum for the rest of our lives. And as people before have said, he was an amazingly loving person who would do things for people. He was patient and kind and supportive. And I want to give you a few thoughts of how that came about, or in my life, how that happened. So I say a long time, Aunt Joyce used to take me on dates with Uncle Bob. I mean, you know, Uncle Bob put up with, I guess I was about 4 or 5, I don't know, maybe 3. And Uncle Bob used to share about how it's like, why she got to bring this kid along? But it all worked out because I really had a special relationship with Bob. Some of you who are musicians can appreciate this. I started playing the trumpet in 3rd grade, and course, I wasn't very good at it. But Uncle Bob would put up with this stuff. And, you know, as years progressed, I got better. And I would go out to the country and visit Aunt Joyce, and she would always say, "Bring your trumpet." I was like, "Okay, yeah, bring the trumpet." And, you know, we'd be sitting around drinking beer, listening to the race cars down in Lebanon Valley, complaining about, those guys. And Aunt Joyce would be there, "You guys gonna play your trumpet?" And we'd be like, "Yeah, okay." And I'll tell you, you know, there's nothing as special as sitting down and making music with other people. You know what I mean? It's like, you'd pull his music out, and I couldn't play it. You know, it's like, wow, this is hard. And he'd, no, take it easy. And he'd say, yeah, this is like, da, 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 da. And we'd play this music, and, you know, I will never forget all the times that we made music together. It's just amazing. And you know, that he would put up with my poor performance, and he'd just carry me along, very patient, kind. It was so supportive. Just so supportive. And I think probably all of you have felt how supportive Bob was. He really was a supportive, loving, kind person. And we'll all miss him horribly, horribly miss him. But we carry his memories forward. We'll never forget what Bob did for each and every one of us. Thank you for coming out today.
Now, those of you who were early enough that you've got the insert, Oh My Papa. You're fine.
Good afternoon. That should be loud enough for those in the back row. Bob and Joyce shared a special song. This song was written in Germany back in the mid-1930s, actually written for German movies. And it was recorded over the years. First of all, recorded by big-name recording stars in Yiddish, and years later in English. And actually more representative of all of those was a combination of English, Yiddish, and a number of different verses. We have a small sample of that for you in your package today. And for those of you, well, those parts, you're on your own. The part in the middle in Yiddish, when I read that, I thought it was quite apropos for the service that we're having today. And for that, we'll help you out a little bit. I, van der Lachen, der Mund, so bright in the road. When he laughed, his mouth, it was so bright and so red. You following along with me?
Yes.
Very good. Und der Augen, sie sind wie Diamantenstrahlen. And the eyes, when he smiled and laughed, his eyes shined like streaming diamonds. So we ask you to join in with us in reading or singing along the words as we add some music to Oh Mein Papa.
To me,
listen now to the words of the Song of the River, a poem that was written by William Randolph Hearst, the publisher, many years ago. He died in 1951, of the Hearst newspapers. The Song of the River by William Randolph Hearst. And on a day like this, with the rain coming down, with the rivers near us, we're right, our song is right here, surrounded by rivers. The snow melts on the mountain, and the water runs down to the spring. And the spring in a turbulent fountain, with a song of youth to sing, runs down to the riotous river, and the river flows to the sea. And the water again goes back in rain to the hills where it used to be. And I wonder if life's deep mystery isn't much like the rain and the snow, returning through all eternity to the places it used to know. For life was born on the lofty heights and flows in a laughing stream to the river below, whose onward flow ends in a peaceful dream. And so at last, when our life has passed and the river has run its course, it again goes back o'er the selfsame track to the mountain which was its source. So why prize life, or why fear death, or dread what is to be? The river ran its allotted span till it reached the silent sea. Then the water harked back to the mountain top to begin its course once more. So we shall run the course begun till we reach the silent shore. Then revisit earth in a pure rebirth from the heart of the virgin snow. So don't ask why we live or die, or whether or when we go, or wonder about the mysteries that only God may know. Now music selection, Azulau.
I just want to introduce myself. My name is Sherry Helstein. This is my husband, Matthew Katz. I am actually related to Bob through my grandmother, Eva Baum, who was a cousin to Nat. And so here we are.
This is a little Brazilian song that Matthew and I do.
25 years, it's the one song we do.
He doesn't play any classical, he doesn't play any opera, so it's a very sweet, simple song, and it's just about a young man or a young woman, it can be either one, telling this bluebird, azulão, which is a Brazilian word, to please fly over to where my lover is and bring him or her back to me. Very simple.
Vai, azulão, azulão, companheiro.
now it's time for you to share your memories and experiences. And I invite, whoops, that's why. You can hear me now. I know, I was joking around. Okay, first of all, what I'm going to just set the stage for you. I have two messages from cousins from Ontario who could not be here today that sent their messages, so I'll start that off with them. And then I'll ask each of you to stand where you are, unless you're close enough you can get to the mic, but it might be best to just stand where you are, speak as loudly as possible so people can hear you. But these are from Canadian cousin Merle Hautrek Mate and Anna Hautrek. Anna's message says, "Dear Joyce, I joined Merle in voicing what fun it was to go to Harmony Acres. I loved it there when I was small, and now that I am bigger, or at least older, I still love it and have so many fond memories. Bob was such a great cousin. Just like his dad, he had such wonderful jokes and tales to tell. I remember the Beagles, Sunday, and Topper. I remember Bob playing the trumpet. I remember just sitting around and having a beer with him. I love him and I will miss him. All my love to you, Anna." And this is from Merle. "Dear Joyce, I first met Bob when I was 12. That was a few years ago. We have common ancestors, great-great-grandfather, I believe. My little sister Anna and I went by bus from Ottawa, Canada to visit with his parents, Adele and Matt, at their summer home, Harmony Acres. Joyce and Bob, of course, stayed down the hill, and we all took to one another immediately. They took us to the beach, and we made music together. They had no children, so we pretended for a week or so that we were theirs. Over the many years since then, we have visited back and forth and kept in touch as family members at a distance. Letters in those days, and then phone calls, and more recently, of course, by email. The last time Anna and I, as it turns out, saw Bob was a year ago, when we descended on them and had meals and laughs and made memories together. Bob played an important role in my children's lives when we visited them. We will all miss Bob tremendously."
Well, I am Joyce's sister, and I want to thank you all who have been helping to take care of her since Bob passed away, because I felt very badly that I couldn't be here because I was recovering excuse me, from hip surgery. And I thought and thought about what I would say today, because I knew I had to say something. After all, that's my brother-in-law. And most of you who have said anything so far have touched on the things that I would have said myself, because he was the kindest person I have ever met. He took better care of my mother when she was sick than either of us did, didn't he, Joyce? And you could always count on Bob to take care of people who needed help in an emergency. And he was so amazing. And the other thing I think is so beautiful about today is this ceremony. I just think it's beautiful. And I don't know how you or whoever put it together did it, but it's beautiful. And it reminds me of when Bob's father passed away, the musicians who he had taught came to play at his house, which I just thought was another really beautiful tribute. And I was happy to hear that there would be music today, because I think all of you who have been sharing your gift, musical gift is just wonderful. So thank you all for being here and taking care of my sister.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
I'm Eric Steinberg. I'm another nephew. And stop. I'm 58 years old, so those of you who know how long Bob and Joyce were married, I was born about a month after they got married. Excuse me. Bob was like another father to me. As Mark said, when we were with Joyce and Bob, we could kind of just, do the things we weren't supposed to do. So, I went to Florida when I was 20 years old, moved to Florida, and so for like the past 38 years, my relationship with Bob, we'd get together and he would, I would share things with him and he would give me his thoughts and, was always a great guy to bounce things off of. But most of my really fond memories are from when I was a child. Joyce and Bob would take me up to, before they lived down the hill from Nat and Adele's place, they had a little trailer, and I'd stay up in the loft. That was really fun to sleep up in the loft. And Uncle Bob taught me how to shoot a gun. I don't think Joyce was too happy about that, but I think the gun was bigger than me. And he would have me aim at woodchucks that were trying to steal food out of the garden. And I don't think I ever hit a woodchuck with a bullet, but it would scare them off, It was fun. And then one summer, I wanted to go to the racetrack, Lebanon Valley Racetrack. And I guess I was very talkative at the time and just wouldn't shut up. I was just babbling all the time. I don't know, I was maybe, I don't know, how old was I? I was 7, 8, 9, somewhere around there. And Bob said, and Bob did not like the racetrack, that's where all the noise occurred at night. But I wanted to go to the racetrack. I wanted to see the stock cars. And Bob said, if you don't say anything like the rest of the day, I'll take you to the So I went the whole day without saying
Oh my gosh.
And as much as Bob didn't want to take me to the racetrack, he took me to the racetrack. So, just so many memories, We'd go to the drive-in movies and they didn't want to have to pay for me to go to, an additional person. You had to pay per person, not per car. So I would be under the blankets in the back of the station. And for me, it wasn't about what movie, I don't know what movie we saw. It was like popcorn and, in the back of the station wagon.
That's right.
So, just lots of stuff like that. Tobogganing down the hill. Just so many fun childhood memories. So, thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Tim. Bob's mentoring at Crane 91, 92. Bob went into my life. I could always count on Bob. I could call him any problem I ever had. He'd always be there. An ear to listen to, a shoulder to cry on. Turned 16 years old. I got my permit. Bob was the only man that would ever let me drive a standard. He taught me in the hills of Columbia County how to drive a standard. I think I did pretty good. Over the years, I met my high school sweetheart, April. 2006, Bob played the trumpet at my wedding. I believe it was the wedding march that my wife came down the aisle to. And Bob has touched my heart, and he'll always be there. And Joyce, I'm so sorry for your loss. Take care.
My name is Bert Murphy, and I represent the Tri-County Banjo Band. I first met Joyce and Bob when Joyce hired us to play at their 50th wedding anniversary. And I did not know them at all. I did not even know Bob was a musician. And several years after, I was playing with a small quartet in Nassau, and Joyce came up. She was a faithful follower, as was Bob. And she said, Bob plays the trumpet. Do you think he can sit in with you? And that's sometimes dangerous, but we were very flexible, and I said, sure, why not? And I was amazed at this understated trumpet player who did not take over the music at all. He just played in the background, and it was wonderful. And I encouraged him to come and play with the banjo band. And he said that would be great. And he would never take a solo. He would just come and sit in the back row. And I'd say, Bob, you take a chorus. And he, well, maybe, you know. And he did. And he was wonderful. And they have been, Joyce is still a faithful follower of the band. And we appreciate that. And we will miss Bob greatly. Thank you.
I'm Janine Budesheim, and I'm the director of the Ava Park Community Orchestra. I wasn't privileged to know Bob a long time ago, but he is the one that told me that I should change the name of my group. We started off with just some string instruments many years ago. It was called the Ava Park String Ensemble. And then a couple of flutes and clarinets came in, and maybe a trumpet came in. And so I decided, well, we couldn't call it just a string ensemble anymore, so I called it the Ava Park Strings and Winds. Bob came along during that time. And so, yes, he was a wind player, but eventually he said to me, Janine, it's not just strings and winds anymore. It's an orchestra. You have a percussion group. You have the strings, you have the woodwinds, you have the brass, you have the percussion. Why not call it an orchestra? And so, yes, thank you, Bob, because now we are the Ava Park Community Orchestra, and it's all due to Bob that changed that name. And Joyce is the one who prodded him to join the orchestra, and he came all the way from here to Ava Park on Wednesday evenings, even in the wintertime, to practice with us. We miss him terribly. He's the one who could hit those high notes in the trumpet section. And now, many times we have to transpose an octave lower because they can't hit those high notes anymore. So we miss him terribly. Not just his playing, but his personality. He was just his personality, and he had such a passion for what he did all the time.
Thank you.
Joyce, we miss him terribly.
My name is Glendora, and I'm the respecter of Baum. And Joyce asked me to tell a joke at his service. This joke is for you, Baum. A shop owner said to his employee, I heard you arguing with a customer. It's the strict policy of this shop that the customer is always right, even when wrong, the customer is right. Now, I never want to hear you argue with a customer again. Do you understand that? And the little employee said, yes, sir. And the owner said, what were you arguing about? And the little employee said, he said you were an idiot.
For many of you now, because it's going to be hard climbing over the seats, can you just stand right where you are and share?
It's a hard act to follow. My name is Kurt Vincent. I'm the leader of the Nassau Community Band, which I don't know how long Bob performed, but I would almost guess that if you folks came to Brainerd in '90, it would probably be prior to that, or maybe I misconstrued that. But for many, 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 many years. And I think Bob always felt a little bit of a closeness because originally my father was the leader of the band, as his was in New Rochelle. And when my father fell ill, I took over the band. And you've all heard about Bob's good sense of humor. Well, Bob had more than a good sense of humor. He had more than the typical musician's sort of sarcastic sense. I would try to keep the group organized in our rehearsals, and I would say, all right, we're going to play such and such next. And Bob would always be the first one to somehow twist that word or twist the name around to something humorous. The decorum would go out the window, everyone would have a big laugh, repeat the joke a few times, and then we would continue on. Now, in the business of giving away free music, we play for many seniors groups, many community organizations, and throughout the summertime, we generally play a series of concerts. It's my firm belief that you have to be entertainers as well as musicians. Most musicians hate to do anything but just play their part. To get them to sing, to get them to do anything in addition is very, very difficult. However, Bob was the exception. I came across an arrangement for trumpet solo called Not Now, Pedro. And it's a little bit politically incorrect. The scenario is it's a Mexican group and the trumpet player's name is Pedro, and he would always get lost. And he would stand up to play his solo and would be in the wrong place and everyone would have to say, "Not now, Pedro." Well, not only did he play it, he had the sombrero, he had the whole thing, and I didn't think it could get any better. Until the next year. And you guys are going to have to help me out with the name of the piece. Ma, he's making eyes at me. Now, with the clientele with which we perform, we typically do older music because they know it and we enjoy playing it with our instrumentation. It sounds pretty good. So the song, Ma, he's making eyes at me. Well, what a better thing to have vocalists. Well, you can't have a guy standing up there saying, "Ma, he's making eyes at me." So, in my mind, it was pretty simple. We dressed Bob as a woman. Well, you know, that kind of so. But our trumpet player tonight, Kenny, he said, "I'll do it too." So it was off to the Salvation Army to find 2 appropriate dresses, order the wigs, and for that season we did Ma, He's Making Eyes at Me with Bobby and Kenny singing and playing. And this is the most important part I want to share with you. Those of you who are computer savvy can go to YouTube and type in Nassau Community Band, and you will see Bob, and you will see Ken singing along with the band. Joyce, we share your great loss, but we'll always remember Bob for his fine musicianship and his wonderful, wonderful sense of humor. And of course, the head's floating in the pond.
I forgot to mention that we have an upcoming concert on December 14th in Avon Park at the Algonquin Middle School, and of course Bob would have been our featured trumpet player. We are going to honor him, and we are going to dedicate one of our numbers called Homeward Bound to Bob and to Joyce that day. So if any of you are interested, it's at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It's in Avon Park at the Algonquin Middle School on the corner of Route 66 and 351. Thank you very much. I really wanted to get that across to everybody. Thank you.
So we're going to do is just stand up where you are. Go ahead, Forty. Come forward.
Well, Bob and Joyce, my wife and I, and several other couples who were here today have for the past few years gone out to dinner occasionally. Sometimes it's been potluck at people's houses, sometimes it's been at restaurants, and we've always had a good time. About 10 years ago, I think, we had dinner at the Baum's house in Brainerd, and having dinner when we saw that their dog was suffering very, very badly. He was, had difficulty breathing, he couldn't stand up, he was obviously in very, very serious condition. Well, Bob swept up the dog, got in the car, and headed out. And we all discussed right after he left, how is he going to find a veterinarian who will treat a gravely ill dog about 8 o'clock on a Saturday evening in rural Columbia County? I wouldn't have tried, I don't think. But maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours later, Bob came back, and guess what? The dog was better. The dog was breathing well. The dog was walking into the house and was still ill, no question about that, but was going to recover. So what we learned about Bob that night, I think, was he was more than just the life of the party that you all say that we do him very well for. But he was a man who had a deep respect for the sanctity of life, and that was more important than a dinner at his house by far. There was no question. I guess we'd all say together, Bob, please rest in peace.
Hi, my name is Kurt Kwok, and I know Bob and Joyce after I joined U.S. China People's Friendship Association, and it's an organization that both of them has been a long time member, well before me. So after I joined, Bob is very musical talent. Play different instruments and entertain us during the event. And after I become the president of the organization, Bob, very, very good, very kind, always praises, very encouraging, and very good people. And then, to be honest, it's one of the factors that keep me going. Very kind person, and we always have food, of course. Everyone likes food, delicious food, and in our event, and Joyce and Bob will always help out, and particularly Joyce. I give her a title, food director. She will make sure everyone going smoothly for the food, and of course Bob will help out by eating. But very human person. So I just for myself, I really miss Bob, and also our organization. We have some members here today also, and we really miss him. And that's it. Okay.
I'm going to ask for 3 more people, so.
I will be brief.
Okay.
Joyce. 4 of the greatest summers of my adult life were spent when I rented Harmony Acres. We called it farmhouse. And I would come up, I was a teacher at the time, and bring my girls. Bob met them when they were 3. They're both here with me today. They're now 11 and 13. So sitting here this morning, I realized, I fell in love with Joyce and Bob immediately. And they never treated my kids like babies. They just respected them as people. And sitting here, they're counting up the age of how old he was. And I realized, oh my God, he was the same age as my dad, who passed away when I was 16. And Joyce, I think in some way, it never really occurred to me, but he was like a surrogate dad. He taught me the difference between a plier and a wrench. I was there alone with these 2 girls. He taught me how to deal with the mice. I'd show up and there would be tomatoes planted in the garden. Oh, God, he was so good to me. And I'm holding this anvil. I think that's what it's called. No, an awl. It's an awl. It's an awl. stuff with Bob have over the years, but I was thinking about it, and I was fixing my daughter's belt with this, and I was like, oh, he told me, you can't live without it all, you know? And I said, girls, you know, Bob died. And I said, do you remember Bob? And my little one, Ruby, said, yeah, he saved my life. And so I said, tell me the story. I wanted to see if she remembered it. Came back from Vietnam with her after I adopted her at age 3.5 in August. We had been at the farmhouse. I got the call, flew to Vietnam, came back 6 weeks later, and immediately came to the farmhouse. We were living in New Jersey. Joyce and Bob had prepared the place for us. They couldn't wait to meet this new little addition. She had never seen pond, never mind grass, I mean nothing. So we took her swimming. We didn't take her swimming. She wouldn't go in the pond, but apparently, while Joyce and I were chatting away like we would all afternoon, right? My other daughter started screaming that she had fallen off the dock in their pond, you know, their pond. 3.5-year-old girl can't even speak English. And I ran to the dock, as did Joyce, both of us in pretty good shape at the time. But we didn't see her. And, you know, it felt like hours, but within whatever amount of time it took, Bob came out from under the dock. He must have gotten in, we didn't see him, and holding up this little girl. And he did. He saved her life. And she knows it, right, Ruby? She's hiding. And I will always be grateful for the many kindnesses of Joyce and Bob, but at that extremely scary time in my life, to have him there, an angel, just an angel. And as I say, my spiritual circle, blessed be, knowing Bob.
Mel Horowitz, I know Bob and Joyce first through the Georgetown People's Friendship Association. I've always loved music, and Bob would come to dinners, picnics, and he'd bring his trumpet along, and always willing to play with anyone. And I never learned to play musical instruments. One of my most precious memories is, and it's probably about 30 years ago or something like that, when Bob and Joyce allowed me to play with them on the stage. I believe it was Shaker High School. Am I right, Joyce? Yeah. And Joyce with her washboard and horn, and Bob with the trumpet. And I played with them the only instrument that I have managed to master, which is the kazoo. And it's one of my greatest memories. Thank you, and we'll all really miss Bob.
Okay, the last, yes.
I'm Marion Lathrop from the Quaker meeting here. We're delighted that Joyce chose this place for the service. She said that Bob loved this building. It's new, as you can tell. So with so many people, you're really stressing our capabilities here. So as the service ends, please be patient. We still have 35 chairs out here in the vestibule. We have tables to set and so forth. But when it gets set, please feel free to come and get food and bring it back in here to eat, or go into the yellow room or wherever. But we appreciate you being here. We're just a little overtaxed with so many people in so little space. Please be patient.
You want to share?
Yes. Bob believed in the possibility of change. And as a founding member of the Lebanon Valley Conservancy, Bob worked for change to make the Lebanon Valley a better community. And as such, we miss him. We want to thank him, and we're thankful that he was there for us. Thank you.
This concludes the sharing time. I do, sorry that I have to be in the role of cutting you off. I know a lot of you still have things to share. shared either verbally, email, phone calls, cards, messages, if you haven't already shared with Joyce, some of the things you might have said here if I'd given you the opportunity. And also to underscore what several people have said, that Bob does live on in our memories, in the values that he lifted up himself, in all the music, in all the jokes, and all the sharing. And I'm not sure what you've got for plans in the long future, but I know you're talking about a concert that would be, are you still planning that? Okay, so this is not the end of the music today. Joyce will be planning a concert, which this was the memorial celebration of his life, which obviously had to include music. But at that time, then it'll be purely a concert of musicians that were part of his life. So she'll let you know when that is planned. And then I want to also thank all of you for sharing, those of you who couldn't share. And I do encourage you to share that when you have the opportunity. I never believe in standing between people and food. But I want to emphasize those of you who are out in the back, if you would move the folding chairs in a couple minutes, move them out into the other room, set them up, because we'll be using those chairs for you to sit at to eat, and then allow enough time for the tables to be set up as well. So you'll just use that judgment. This is a nice, comfortable room to be in. But don't go rushing out the door unless you have to. Our service closes with the blessing of God to be with all of you, the blessing that we have known Bob, and the blessings that will continue to go into your lives from him. May God continue to be with each of you in all the days to come. And one of the urgent prayers that we always pray for is peace on earth. So let us stand and sing together, "Let there be peace on earth."
Is that you? Yeah, that's great.